The darkness of space enveloped the massive fleet, the titanium hulls of the Imperial ships reflecting the distant starlight as they moved in perfect formation toward their target. The Galactic Empire had conquered thousands of planets over millennia, crushing all resistance under the weight of superior technology and sheer numbers. Emperor Callius stood at the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, gazing at the holographic representation of their latest conquest, a small blue planet at the edge of an unremarkable solar system. Earth, he pronounced with disdain, the word almost bitter on his tongue. Hardly worth our attention, but their refusal to acknowledge our envoys cannot go unpunished. Admiral Vorn bowed deeply. The reconnaissance fleet will make contact within the hour, Your Eminence. We expect their surrender by nightfall. Emperor Callius nodded absently, his attention already turning to more pressing matters. The expansion into the Andromeda Galaxy, the suppression of rebels in the Centauri sector. Earth was merely an afterthought, a footnote in the glorious history of the Galactic Empire. How wrong he was. The first indication that something was amiss came 3 standard days later, when all communication with the reconnaissance fleet abruptly ceased. Emperor Callius was in the midst of a high council meeting when Grand Admiral Thaxon entered, his usually composed features strained. Your Eminence, he began, his voice carefully controlled. We've lost contact with the 7th Fleet. A murmur ran through the assembled counselors. The 7th Fleet comprised 15 battleships, 30 cruisers, and numerous support vessels, a force capable of subduing an entire star system. Lost contact. Emperor Callius frowned. Explain. The fleet entered the Sol system as scheduled. The last transmission we received was from Admiral Zereth. He reported unusual energy readings near Mars. Then, nothing. Thaxon's eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. We've detected debris consistent with our ship's composition scattered throughout the system. Impossible, spat General Draven, a decorated veteran of 100 campaigns. No primitive civilization could destroy an Imperial fleet. Perhaps it wasn't the Earthlings, suggested Grand Strategist Velen. His ancient eyes narrowed in thought. There are reports of rebel activity in that sector. Emperor Callius rose from his throne, silencing the debate. Whatever the cause, this insult will not stand. Admiral Thaxon, prepare the 3rd Division. I want Earth reduced to ashes. As the council dispersed, only Velen remained, studying the holographic representation of Earth with growing concern. There was something about this situation that didn't add up, a piece missing from the puzzle. The Earthlings were supposed to be technologically backward, barely capable of interplanetary travel. How could they have defeated an Imperial fleet? Little did they know that deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, General Arya Morgan, known to her subordinates as the Ice Queen, was reviewing the footage of their first contact with the Galactic Empire. Her steely gray eyes reflected the holographic images of Imperial ships dissolving under precise energy strikes. The Emperor's scouts have been eliminated, reported Colonel Draven Rice, his scarred face impassive. But they'll send more. General Morgan nodded, her platinum hair gleaming under the harsh lights of the command center. Of course they will. The Empire always does. Should we mobilize the Phantom Division? Not yet. A cold smile played on her lips. Let them come in force first. Let them think they're facing a primitive civilization. The shock will be all the greater when they discover what we really are. Colonel Rice hesitated. The Council is concerned about revealing too much of our capabilities too soon. The Council has been waiting for this moment for 300 years, Colonel. General Morgan's voice was sharp as steel. Ever since we discovered the Empire's existence and began preparing. Now, they've finally found us, and they have no idea what they're walking into. The command center hummed with activity, officers monitoring a vast array of screens showing Earth's defenses that had remained hidden for centuries, waiting for this moment. We've been ready for them, General Morgan said quietly, and now they're coming to us. On the distant planet of Zardonia, the jewel of the Empire, Emperor Callius watched as Admiral Theron's fleet, 30 battleships, 10 carriers, and hundreds of escort vessels, departed for Earth. It was the largest force assembled in a decade, overkill for such an insignificant target. But the Emperor wanted to make a statement. No one defied the Galactic Empire and lived. "How long until they reach Earth?" he asked. "2 standard weeks, Your Eminence," replied Admiral Vorn. "Admiral Theron has orders to bombard their major cities first, then proceed with a full planetary occupation." Emperor Callius nodded in satisfaction. "Good. I want daily reports." But the reports never came. 3 weeks later, Emperor Callius stormed into the Imperial War Room, his face contorted with rage. "Where is Admiral Theron? Why have we received no communications?" The officers exchanged nervous glances. Finally, Admiral Vorn stepped forward. "Your Eminence, we lost contact with Admiral Theron's fleet 14 days ago. They had just entered the Sol system when all transmissions ceased. 2 fleets." The Emperor's voice was deadly quiet. "2 Imperial fleets have disappeared." "There's more, Your Eminence." Admiral Vorn's voice trembled slightly as he activated a holographic projector. "We received this transmission just before communications were lost." The image flickered to life, showing the bridge of Admiral Theron's flagship. Alarms blared in the background, and officers rushed frantically from station to station. Admiral Theron himself appeared, his uniform disheveled, his eyes wide with panic. "This is Admiral Theron of the Imperial Fleet," he began, his voice strained. "We are under attack from an unknown force. Our weapons are ineffective. They've already destroyed half our fleet and the rest." The transmission was interrupted by a blinding flash of light. When the image stabilized, a new figure stood in the foreground, a human female in a sleek, black uniform unlike anything the Empire had encountered before. "Greetings, Emperor," she said, her voice calm and measured. "I am Colonel Draven Rice of Earth's Phantom Division. Your Admiral is currently our guest. I suggest you refrain from sending any more ships to our system. The 2 fleets you've lost were merely intercepted by our perimeter forces." A cold smile crossed her face. "The real army hasn't even arrived yet." The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. "Perimeter forces?" whispered an officer. "If that was just their perimeter defense." Emperor Callius slammed his fist on the console, shattering the holographic projector. "I want every available ship redirected to the Sol system. I want Earth reduced to cosmic dust. I want these humans to learn the price of defiance." Grand Strategist Velen watched the Emperor's outburst with growing concern. This was not a simple case of a primitive civilization getting lucky. The humans had been prepared. They had known exactly how to counter Imperial technology. How was that possible? As the Emperor raged, issuing orders for the largest military mobilization in Imperial history, Velen slipped away to his private chambers. There, he accessed ancient records that few in the Empire were even aware existed, records dating back to the founding of the Empire itself. He had a terrible suspicion, one that he prayed was wrong. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Colonel Rice watched as the captured Imperial officers were led to the interrogation chambers. Admiral Theron walked with his head held high, but his eyes betrayed his fear. "You're making a mistake," the Admiral said as they passed. "The Empire will destroy you for this." Colonel Rice merely smiled. "Your Empire has no idea what it's facing, Admiral. You've spent millennia conquering species that were easy targets, isolated, technologically inferior, divided. Earth is none of those things. You're just one planet," scoffed the Admiral. "Are we?" Colonel Rice's smile widened. "That's your first mistake." In the command center, General Morgan was reviewing tactical displays with her senior officers when Colonel Rice entered. "The prisoners are secure," he reported. "Intelligence is beginning the interrogation now." General Morgan nodded. "And our fleet? Echo units have secured Mars and are moving to the outer planets. The Imperial outposts in the system have been neutralized. Casualties? Minimal. Their technology is advanced, but predictable. They rely too much on brute force and not enough on adaptability." General Morgan's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, which showed not just Earth, but dozens of other systems where hidden human forces were preparing to move. "Activate the gate network. It's time we showed the Empire what they're really dealing with." Colonel Rice hesitated. The council authorized that. They did. General Morgan turned to face him, her expression grim. 300 years ago, when our ancestors first detected the Empire's signals and realized what was coming, they made a decision. Earth wouldn't be conquered like all those other worlds. We would prepare. We would hide. And when the Empire finally found us, we would be ready. She gestured to the display. Humanity isn't just on Earth, Colonel. While the Empire was busy conquering the known galaxy, we quietly spread to hundreds of worlds in uncharted space. We built our own empire, hidden, dispersed, patient. And now the Empire has finally found us. And they have no idea. What's coming? Colonel Rice said softly. No, agreed General Morgan. They don't. On Zardonia, Emperor Callius watched in mounting horror as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Imperial outposts were going dark. Occupied worlds were reporting the sudden appearance of unknown vessels that decimated Imperial forces before disappearing again. The Empire, which had stood unchallenged for millennia, was under attack on multiple fronts. How is this possible? He demanded, his voice hoarse with rage. How can one planet coordinate attacks across the galaxy? Grand Strategist Velen had finally found what he was looking for in the ancient records, a warning left by the Empire's founders about a species they had deliberately avoided, a species with potential too dangerous to risk confronting. Humans. The warning described them as uniquely adaptable, unervingly creative, and capable of rapid technological advancement when threatened. The founders had deliberately steered the Empire's expansion away from Earth, hoping that by the time the Empire inevitably encountered humanity, both civilizations would have evolved beyond conflict. That hope had proven naive. Your Eminence, Velen began carefully, I believe the humans have been aware of our existence for centuries. They've been preparing for this confrontation while we remained ignorant of their true capabilities. Impossible, Emperor Callius dismissed. No species could hide such preparations from our intelligence services. Unless our intelligence services were deliberately looking the other way, Velen suggested. There are indications that certain elements within the Empire have been suppressing information about Earth for generations. The Emperor's eyes narrowed dangerously. Treason, self-preservation, perhaps. The records suggest that our founders feared humanity's potential. Maybe their descendants sought to prevent a confrontation they believed we couldn't win. Emperor Callius was silent for a long moment, processing this revelation. Finally, he spoke, his voice cold with determination. If these humans want a war, they shall have one. Activate Project Gravemind. A collective gasp echoed through the war room. Project Gravemind was the Empire's darkest secret. A weapon so terrible it had been sealed away after nearly destroying the Empire's founders. Your Eminence, Velen protested. Gravemind is unstable. It could turn on us as easily as it turns on our enemies. I would rather risk destruction than accept defeat, Emperor Callius declared. Activate it. Now. As the order was relayed, ancient mechanisms deep beneath Zardonia's surface began to awaken. Project Gravemind, a hybridized biomechanical entity with near-godlike intelligence and the ability to manipulate space-time itself, stirred from its enforced slumber. Far away, in the hidden human colony of Helion 7, Colonel Rice led a specialized team into the depths of an abandoned Imperial research facility. The facility had been evacuated hastily decades earlier, leaving behind valuable intelligence that the humans had been carefully extracting ever since. There's something here, reported Lieutenant Vega, a data specialist. References to a Project Gravemind, buried under heavy encryption. Break it, ordered Colonel Rice. Priority Alpha. Hours later, as the team worked to decrypt the files, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Energy spike detected, shouted an officer. Massive distortion in space-time, originating from the Imperial core worlds. Colonel Rice felt a chill run down his spine. Get that data, now. When the decryption finally broke through, the horrifying truth was revealed. Project Gravemind wasn't just a weapon. It was an entity created from the merged consciousness of an ancient, extinct species, combined with artificial intelligence, and wrapped in a shell of exotic matter that allowed it to exist partially outside normal space-time. And its only directive was to eliminate threats to the Empire, a directive it interpreted with cold, alien logic that considered all non-imperial life a potential threat. "We need to get this information to General Morgan," Colonel Rice ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "The Empire hasn't just declared war on us. They've declared war on all life in the galaxy." Across the inhabited worlds, reports began coming in of strange phenomena, sudden gravitational anomalies, communications disrupted by unknown signals, unpowered technology activating spontaneously. The signs of grave minds awakening. On Earth's moon, General Morgan received Colonel Rice's transmission with grim determination. "The Empire has lost control," she announced to the assembled leaders of Earth's defense. "They've activated a weapon they can't control out of desperation." "What are our options?" asked Admiral Chun, commander of Earth's space fleet. "We fight," General Morgan replied simply. "Not just for Earth now, but for all life in the galaxy. And we're not fighting alone." She activated a communication channel, and the command center filled with holographic representations of dozens of alien species, many of them former subjects of the Empire who had secretly allied with humanity after discovering their mutual enemy. "The Empire made the same mistake with all of us," General Morgan addressed the assembly. "They underestimated our will to survive, our capacity for resistance. Now, they've unleashed something that threatens everyone, including themselves. The alliance was unprecedented, species that had evolved on worlds light years apart, united by their determination to survive. Together, they developed a plan to confront not just the Empire, but the monstrous entity it had unleashed. As Gravemind extended its influence across the galaxy, reality itself seemed to warp. Imperial ships found themselves unable to navigate, their systems corrupted by an intelligence that rewrote their programming faster than their safeguards could respond. But non-imperial vessels suffered too, as Gravemind's definition of threat expanded to include anything that wasn't explicitly part of the Empire's original structure. The first direct confrontation with Gravemind occurred in the Proxima system, where a combined fleet of human and alien vessels encountered a swirling mass of energy and matter that defied conventional physics. It absorbed energy weapons, redirected kinetic projectiles, and emitted pulses that drove organic minds to the brink of madness. "Conventional weapons are useless," reported Captain Alara of the human battleship Whisper of Mars. "It's like fighting a black hole with a flashlight." But humanity and their allies had one advantage: diversity of thought. While the Empire had imposed uniformity across its domain, the Alliance brought together vastly different approaches to technology, warfare, and problem-solving. It was a scientist from the aquatic Norse species who first identified a potential weakness in Gravemind structure. "It exists partially outside normal space-time," Dr. Liren explained, her tentacles gesturing at complex equations. "But that connection requires an enormous amount of energy it draws from the Imperial network. So we cut it off from its power source," Colonel Rice suggested. "Not so simple," Dr. Liren cautioned. "The Imperial network spans the galaxy. But there's another approach. Gravemind operates on logic, Imperial logic. It defines threats based on patterns it recognizes. If we could introduce enough randomness, enough chaos into its system." From this insight, Project Babel was born, an initiative to overwhelm Gravemind with the one thing it couldn't process: the unpredictable, often illogical nature of organic consciousness. While the Alliance forces engaged Gravemind's physical manifestations across the galaxy, drawing its attention and resources, a specialized team led by Colonel Rice and Dr. Liren prepared to deploy the Thanews Drive, a device that would channel the collective consciousness of thousands of volunteers directly into Gravemind's core processes. The plan was desperate, dangerous, and had only the slimmest chance of success. But as General Morgan told the assembled forces before the final battle, throughout history, Humanity has survived not because we were strongest or smartest, but because we refused to accept defeat. Today, we stand with allies who share that same determination. Together, we will either prevail or ensure that nothing remains for Gravemind to rule. The Empire, now aware of the true threat Gravemind posed, found itself in the unprecedented position of fighting alongside former enemies. Grand strategist Velen, having led a coup against the increasingly unstable Emperor Callius, directed Imperial forces to support the Alliance's efforts to contain Gravemind while the Thanews Drive was prepared. For millennia, the Empire has represented order in the galaxy. Velen addressed his forces. Now we must acknowledge that our pursuit of perfect order has created perfect chaos. Today we fight not for the Empire's glory, but for its redemption. The final confrontation took place in orbit around Jupiter, where Gravemind had created a stable manifestation, a swirling vortex of dark energy that bent light around it, creating an effect like a black sun surrounded by a corona of lightning. Alliance and Imperial ships formed a perimeter, engaging the entity's defenses while Colonel Rice and his team approached in a specially shielded vessel carrying the Thanews Drive. As they neared their target, Gravemind became aware of their intent. The space around their ship distorted as the entity attempted to either crush them or expel them from normal space-time. "It's in my head," gasped Lieutenant Vega, blood trickling from her nose. "Showing me Earth burning, everyone dying, over and over. Mental attack," Colonel Rice gritted through clenched teeth, fighting his own visions of failure and destruction. "It's trying to break our resolve." Dr. Liren, her alien physiology somewhat resistant to Gravemind's influence, focused on the Thanews Drive's controls. "We must proceed. We are close enough." With tremendous effort, Colonel Rice engaged the ship's final approach thrusters, bringing them into the heart of the vortex. All around them, reality seemed to fragment, past, present, and possible futures bleeding into one another. "Now," he commanded. Dr. Liren activated the Thanews Drive. Instantly, the consciousness of thousands of volunteers, humans and aliens who had agreed to link their minds to the device, flooded into the ship. The collective force of their thoughts, emotions, memories, and dreams, chaotic, contradictory, unpredictable, surged toward Gravemind's core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vortex pulsed, contracting violently before expanding again. Strange, discordant signals emanated from it, spreading across all communication channels. "It's working," Dr. Liren observed, her voice strained. "The entity is attempting to process the input." Gravemind's defenses faltered as more and more of its processing power was diverted to making sense of the flood of consciousness it had absorbed. The Alliance ships pressed their advantage, targeting the now vulnerable points in the entity structure. Aboard the command ship Enduring, General Morgan watched the battle unfold. "All units, converge on the designated coordinates. This is our only chance." The combined firepower of the Alliance and Imperial fleets focused on a single point, the nexus where Gravemind's connection to normal space-time was weakest. Under this concentrated assault, the vortex began to collapse in on itself. Colonel Rice's ship, still at the heart of the maelstrom, shuddered as the space around it warped. "We're not going to make it out," he realized, exchanging a look with Dr. Liren. "Perhaps not," she agreed calmly. "But our purpose is fulfilled." The vortex contracted one final time, then imploded with a silent flash that momentarily outshone Jupiter's reflected sunlight. Where Gravemind had been, there was now only empty space, and the scattered debris of Colonel Rice's ship. In the aftermath, as the Alliance and Imperial forces assessed their losses and tended to their wounded, a fragile peace emerged. The Empire, its power broken and its emperor deposed, began the painful process of reckoning with its past. Many former imperial worlds declared independence, while others sought new alliances. Earth, no longer hidden, assumed a central role in the reshaping of galactic politics. The sacrifices made to defeat Gravemind had earned humanity both respect and wariness from other species. 1 month after the battle, General Morgan stood on the surface of the moon, gazing at the blue-white sphere of Earth. Admiral Shiro, who had taken command of the fleet after Admiral Chen's death in the final battle, joined her. "The Council has approved the treaty with the former Empire," he reported. "It's not everything we hoped for, but it's a start." General Morgan nodded. "And the Proxima colonies?" "Rebuilding. They took heavy losses, but the engineering teams are optimistic." They stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the changed galaxy. Finally, Admiral Shiro asked the question many had been pondering. "Do you think it's really over? Gravemind, the Empire, all of it?" General Morgan's expression remained impassive, but her eyes carried the weight of all they had survived. "Nothing ever truly ends, Admiral. We didn't win a war. We survived one. There will be others. There always are. That's not very reassuring." A slight smile touched General Morgan's lips. "It wasn't meant to be, but we're still here. After everything the galaxy threw at us, humanity is still standing." She turned to face him fully. "And whatever comes next, we'll face it the same way we've faced everything else, together and refusing to surrender." What neither of them knew, what no one in the Alliance yet realized, was that deep in the void where Gravemind had been destroyed, a faint signal was pulsing. Barely detectable, easily dismissed as background radiation, it repeated a simple pattern that, if anyone had been listening closely, might have been interpreted as a message. Recalibrating, adapting. The real army hasn't even arrived yet. Light years away, in the uncharted regions beyond the former Empire's boundaries, something stirred in the darkness between stars. Something ancient, patient, and now finally awakened by the disturbance Gravemind's destruction had caused in the fabric of space-time. The true test of humanity and its allies had only just begun. On Earth, life continued. Cities rebuilt, children played in parks, and people looked to the stars with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. They had survived the Empire's attention and Gravemind's hunger. They had proven themselves worthy adversaries and valuable allies. But General Arya Morgan, standing alone in her office after Admiral Shiro had departed, studied a report that few others had seen. Evidence of unusual energy signatures at the edge of explored space, signals that matched no known pattern, movements that followed no logical course. "And so we wait again," she murmured to herself, placing the report in a secure drawer. "Because the real army hasn't even arrived yet." She turned to the window, gazing at the stars that no longer seemed quite so distant or quite so benign. Humanity had survived its first true test as a galactic power, but Morgan knew in her bones that it wouldn't be the last. The silent stars offered no answers, only the promise of new challenges to come. And in the depths of space, something watched and waited and prepared. The real war had not even begun.